Okay. Well, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Go Talk with Marcus, powered by PodDecks, fueled by Goat Fuel. Episode 78 of season 2, actually, which is quite impressive because it's hard to keep track sometimes. Joining me on the show for the first time in a long time is Blaine Spencer of the Final Whistle Sports Pod and my man TV of TV on Basketball. What's up, fellas? How you doing tonight?
Doing good, man. Thanks for having us on the show.
Yeah, without question.
It's always a pleasure to have you on the show, TV.
Oh, wow. So that's how we're starting.
Yeah, he completely leaves me out. We are in for a long episode, aren't we?
It's always a pleasure to have you on the show, TV. I thoroughly enjoy all your input and all your what a great basketball mind TV is. Hence TV on basketball. You got this guy Blaine Spencer over here. I don't know what's going on there, but there's a lot to talk about. A lot of different things to talk about. Let's jump right in. I didn't want to include this in the show, but I felt like I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't. So let's just rip the Band-Aid off. Let's talk about Kyrie Irving. Specifically, the long list of things that he has to do in order to start playing basketball again for the Brooklyn Nets this season. He has to apologize. He has to denounce the documentary that he posted on his social media platforms. He has to donate $500,000, I think it is, to anti-Semitic nonprofit or nonprofit organizations that look to combat anti-Semitism. He has to have a meeting with G.O.A.T and a meeting with Adam Silver, which I believe he's already had. This is a lot of stuff. For what I think what I know Kyrie Irving has acknowledged was not an intended action, right? And I think we all know, and I think we all recognize that Kyrie Irving, despite the myriad of extracurricular activities that he participates in, and the fact that he believes that the earth is flat, and the fact that he takes time off at a whim, it seems sometimes, Kyrie Irving's not a bad human being, and it seems as if it feels as if the NBA is kind of doing all of this as if Kyrie Irving is a bad person. So, TV, is this too much for Kyrie Irving? Like, is this too much for Kyrie Irving to do to come back to play basketball for the Nets?
Ultimately, yes. I do believe it is a bit too much. But I do want to point out that the reason why they're even putting all of this on the plate is because of the whole Kanye West stuff from a couple of weeks ago. That's the biggest reason why this all kind of has to come down, because of what he said. But honestly, Kyrie Irving, compared to what Kanye did, a lot less worse than what Kyrie did. Than Kanye did. Firstly, Kyrie, like you mentioned, he already has all this extracurricular stuff from the past, which he has said, but he is not a bad human being. But in this situation, he did not help himself. He did retweet the post, and then when asked about it, he didn't apologize. He kind of danced around the question. It was really hard to watch, honestly. And look, the Nets did what they had to do, suspended him, had to have a talk with him to kind of teach him, or kind of help him understand that even though there was no intended harm into retweeting this movie, he is a massive figure in sports with tens of millions of followers across all social platforms, and his stances, anything he does has merit, has influence on so many things. So yeah, maybe there wasn't intended harm, but there was some sort of harm. So, but I think he did acknowledge that at the end. Now, all this extracurricular stuff, the stuff that you listed out, the Nets and the NBA is treating it like he's the one who said it, which I don't agree with all the stuff that they have on the list. I think the suspension was warranted enough. As long as he understands his platform and the way his words have just so much validity, or is not even validity, just so much weight on them, and that this type of stuff doesn't really happen again, I think that should be enough for him to come back on the court. This extra stuff that they've asked him to do, I think there's also one where he had to meet with Jewish leaders and stuff like that as well, to kind of understand that. And you know what? Fair play. But honestly, at the end of the day, are they really trying to help him, or this is just more of a performative act by the Brooklyn Nets saying, we don't condone this, even though our player is not, a bad person. it just feels for me, it just feels kind of performative, and that's not really going to be helping him. It's not really going to be help changing his views. I think he as long as he understands what he did was wrong, which it was, but all this extra stuff, I just don't think that it's necessary.
We've seen we've seen a lot of different people kind of come out and speak out on this. Obviously, in the world of sports, like LeBron tweeted about it earlier today, kind of coming to Kyrie's defense, saying that we all know that Kyrie's not a bad guy. Minister Louis Farrakhan had something to say about Kyrie and Kanye, but more so Kyrie than Kanye in a recent video that that's been circulating the internet lately. Like, there's a lot of different responses to this. Nick Cannon made a very interesting comparison, one that I don't think anyone really thought of, and one that I don't think has been given a lot of thought. Blaine, good old Blaine Spencer. Kyrie Irving, is this too much for Kyrie Irving to have to go through to come and start playing basketball again for the Brooklyn Nets?
I think so. I think this has just turned in more of a power grab more than anything else, that the Brooklyn Nets and the NBA are trying to kind of bury Kyrie when he's kind of started to dig his own grave here, and honestly basically tell Kyrie that you have to basically follow everything that we are telling you to do if you want to continue playing this game. And I think Kyrie's trying to figure out now, is this they're basically trying to convince him that this might be one of the final opportunities that he gets, right, with how everything's unfolded in these last 4 or 5 years of his career. So it's become an outlandish move by the NBA, and especially by Brooklyn. I think it's just become a creation of his own demise, however, because he didn't do his due diligence about the tweet. Of course, I think I can speak for all of us that he doesn't have these beliefs, right? And he just didn't understand the video that he was retweeting fully, but he didn't really focus on that, and he's now being punished for that. Nike also came out today pretty much taking away that sponsorship more than likely. They said that's going to be happening sooner rather than later. So now it's everyone trying to disengage themselves from Kyrie. So where does this line now unfold for him? How does he get himself back on the court? LeBron came out and said that it's a unjustifiable punishment that has been done by him, and I concur. I think there's a lot too much. The suspension was enough with an apology. You didn't have to go through all these extra steps. But I think the NBA is now also afraid that his awareness on the actual concept of what he was talking about isn't there, which is why they moved in that direction, right? So they're almost using him as a learning curve and as the plateau, saying if this happens anywhere else, this is going to be the minimum that you guys are going to get. So they've taken it out on Kyrie as the example of punishment.
This is such a tough thing to kind of figure out, because it's like we've said, like, we all know that Kyrie Irving's not an anti-Semitic person. We all know that Kyrie Irving's not a bad guy. Does Kyrie Irving walk to the beat of his own drum? Absolutely. Like, we all know that. There is no denying that. But Kyrie Irving's not a bad human being. There is no, I don't think, well, I can say with almost, I mean, obviously I don't know Kyrie, but I can say with 100% certainty that there was no ill will in Kyrie Irving posting what he posted about this documentary. I do find it ironic, a little bit unnerving, and slightly annoying, though, that all this attention is being sent in Kyrie Irving's direction. But not many people made any noise about the fact that the documentary was on Amazon Prime for anyone to watch or post or anything to begin with. But most importantly, that, if I'm not mistaken, the documentary has been on Amazon Prime for like 4 years. Like, this documentary's been out since 2018. And I don't know how long it's been on Amazon, but it's been out for 4 years. And it hasn't gotten any type of noise, any type of publicity until now, when Kyrie Irving, who we can all agree on this one thing, is someone that not enjoys, but Kyrie Irving is someone that is constantly seeking information, whether it's information about himself or information about the world around him. Like, Kyrie Irving is always trying to expand his knowledge about existence, his existence, the world existence. Like Kyrie Irving's a very existential person. And in his most recent quest of existentialism to figure out where he comes from and all this other good stuff that Kyrie Irving practices, he comes across this documentary where he finds things in the documentary that may or may not have answered some of the questions that he may or may not have had about where he comes from and who he is as a human being. And I think what we need to acknowledge is two things. Number one, that is more important than the overall context matter of, or the overall subject matter of the documentary, in the sense that, yes, the documentary is anti-Semitic. Yes, the documentary does share a lot of misinformation about Jewish people, of course. But Kyrie Irving, having said multiple times since posting this, that he was not posting the documentary to spread the misinformation. He was posting the documentary to share the information that he thought was important to him and he thought his followers and his community should be privy to. That's what's important. And I think what's happening right now with the NBA is, and it's happened with a lot of athletes and a lot of people in general over the years, we're getting into a point now with Kyrie Irving where we're having a very hard time separating the artist from the art, right? Like Kyrie Irving as a person is a difficult person. He's a very complex human being. We can all acknowledge that. But we also have to acknowledge that Kyrie Irving, the basketball player, is phenomenal, and he's one of the greatest talents we've ever seen step foot on a basketball court. What I don't like about this entire scenario is things like what Stephen A. said this morning on First Take about Jack Vaughn. I think that's the name. I don't know if it's Jack Vaughn or Jackie Vaughn, the new head coach of the Brooklyn Nets, who was
Jacques Vaughn.
The head coach of the Brooklyn Nets. Stephen A. says this morning on First Take that the reason why Vaughn is the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets and not Ime Udoka is because of Kyrie Irving. That's just wrong. Like that's not fair to Kyrie Irving, that every time Kyrie Irving makes a mistake as a human being, that he now becomes the scapegoat and the blame of all things bad in Brooklyn, right? You think back to last season, Brooklyn struggling, they end up in the play-in. What does everyone say? Oh, well, if Kyrie takes the vaccine and instead of sitting out, the Nets aren't in the play-in. Yeah, you can say that, but here's the deal, right? At the beginning of the season, we all knew Kyrie Irving wasn't going to take the vaccine, and we all knew Kyrie Irving had no interest in taking the vaccine. We knew that. We knew that. So whether you want to blame Kyrie Irving for that or not, Kyrie Irving, if not one thing, he is very upfront and very honest about who he is as a person. He's very open about who he is as a person. Kyrie made it very clear last year, I have no interest in taking the COVID vaccine. I don't want to take the COVID vaccine. That was his position. The Nets struggled. It is not on Kyrie Irving that the Nets struggled. It is on the Brooklyn Nets that the Nets struggled about Kyrie Irving, because it is still their job to perform despite Kyrie being on the court. It's like if LeBron James gets hurt and he's not playing for the Los Angeles Lakers. Is it the Lakers' fault? Is it LeBron's fault if the Lakers start playing bad basketball? No, it's the Lakers' fault because LeBron got hurt. So what I think we've done is we've gotten so used to Kyrie taking games off and being very open and being very honest about him being different. And now every small thing that every mistake he makes now has to become the reason why the Brooklyn Nets are this, or the reason why the Brooklyn Nets are that, or the reason why the Brooklyn Nets haven't won this or haven't done that. And that, I think, is unfair because Kyrie Irving is a human being, and human beings make mistakes. No one on this earth is perfect. The only perfect person to live isn't here anymore right now, but maybe he's coming back. But Kyrie Irving's not perfect. And because Kyrie Irving's not perfect, I don't think it's fair to Kyrie Irving that every mistake he makes gets scrutinized and manipulated and twisted and turned into some gross thing about Kyrie Irving as a person, as if you, Blaine, or myself, or UTV, or those of you guys that are watching or listening at home haven't also made mistakes. That's my biggest takeaway from all this. It's not so much about the whole anti-Semitism thing, about how he didn't apologize when he had the opportunity to apologize and all that stuff, because all that stuff is fair. But I am just getting sick of Kyrie Irving being villainized for being a human being and for making mistakes, because he's the only person in the NBA, and really the only person in sports in general, that gets villainized for making mistakes. No one else over the last 3 or 4 years has been under more scrutiny for making mistakes than Kyrie Irving. And I don't think it's fair, because we've seen a lot of people, both in sports and in entertainment and in the world of rap and music and all this other stuff, that have made mistakes, and they have not been put under nearly as much scrutiny, and their lives have not been picked apart nearly as much as Kyrie Irving. And now I'm off my soapbox so that we can talk about the fun stuff for tonight, unless either of you have any last words.
No. I guess the only thing I just to maybe finish this off is that Kyrie feels like
He's
the
now
end.
become the scapegoat too.
Yeah,
He's now
yeah,
become the scapegoat.
yeah, and I just think that again, going back to the Kanye stuff, it feels like the NBA wanted a reason to kind of like push, at least like kind of get the message out there that they want to do it, and like it was mentioned earlier, Kyrie's thing kind of opened that door to it. So here's this and this. This is like our way of saying, oh, we don't do it. They're not gonna like say it up front. They just need a reason to do it. And Kyrie, like Marcus said, it's kind of unfair, but there's the reason to do it, just like to push it forward. But again, I don't think it's unfair. I think it's unfair, and it feels a lot performative by the NBA to kind of show that, oh, we're saying with this thing, that type of thing. But yeah, I completely agree. I just think that Kyrie didn't have to be villainized this, especially to this extent.
Let's talk about some fun stuff. Luka Doncic, with the exception of last night, has started off the season scorching hot. I believe he tied Wilt Chamberlain's record for the most 30-point games to start the season, or something like that. He had 9 straight 30-point games to start the season. Last night's game against, I don't remember who they played, but last night
Orlando.
He didn't score 30 points against Orlando. They also lost against Orlando, I believe. Tonight they play the Wizards. I think they're playing the Wizards right now. That game started not too long ago. Luka. I know it's early, right? Teams have only played like 10, 12 games or something like that. We're coming into Thanksgiving, but as it stands today, is Luka the MVP of the league, Blaine?
I would put him as my front runner. I would, if you had to tell me right now who your MVP would, I would say Luka Doncic. He just does so much more for his team than so many of the other players in the NBA. It's absurd. Especially, he has to have the ball in his hands constantly, right? Just the way how the Dallas Mavericks set up their offense and they spread him out with 4 shooters. And he can score in every way imaginable, right? He's got the mid-range, he's got the layup, he knows how to utilize mismatches, and he's gotten that step back that has become absolutely lethal that he actually didn't even have in his repertoire before he came over to the NBA, which is absurd to even think about. And his player efficiency ratings a 36.1, way ahead of Giannis, who is second with I think it's 32.1 or something like that behind him. He's averaging almost a triple-double. I mean, the only thing that he struggles with, and we all know it's his defense, but if you actually look at his statistics, he's in the top 10 in the NBA right now in steals, with averaging 2 a game. So he's doing it all for this team. He's leading by example. I mean, Dallas is 6th in the West right now with a 6-4 record, which may be deemed as a hindrance, but just based off of what he's doing right now, he's averaging 30, almost basically 35 on 50% from the field, 8 rebounds, 8 assists. He's playing absolutely out of his mind. Don't be surprised if he might go for a Russell Westbrook type year and try to average a triple-double.
TV, is Luka the MVP of the league so far this season, or is it someone else?
I think it really just comes down to 2 people. It's him or Giannis at this point in the season. And if I were to give it to one person right now, I would give it to Luka Doncic. I mean, they got rid of Jalen Brunson, and a lot of people were worried about that because that just meant everything has to go through Luka. Absolutely everything. But the good thing about having Luka is that he's one of the best players in the league. Having the ball in his hands at all times is a good thing, and that's what's leading to these wins for the Dallas Mavericks. That's why he is flourishing in such a way. I think he's the MVP right now, and I think the other guys around him are kind of making up for the misproduction of Jalen Brunson. I mean, sure, the ball. I mean, like when Luka goes to the bench, it is really tough to watch, especially because if you've watched the Mavericks games this year, once Luka hits the bench, the lead just evaporates just like that. So, yes, Luka Doncic, his stats are crazy and all that, and I do believe he's the MVP. I think the other guys are really doing their best to kind of just hit their shots and everything. That's why they're able to win games. But Luka is that guy. But really, my only concern for that is how long is he able to do this? I mean, right now, for sure, he's the MVP. But is this usage going to hurt him in the future? Is this going to get him more fatigued near the playoffs? That's the type of stuff I'm worried about because, I mean, if you're watching the games, this guy, I have the stats over here. He starts off games amazingly. I mean, he's like one of the top guys in the league at first quarter scoring. He averages like 13 points a game in the first quarter, but then in the second quarter, that drops drastically down to 5 minutes, then to 5 points per game. Then when you get to the third quarter, he's rested up a bit, up to 9-10 points a game. But in the fourth quarter, this is where it gets really interesting. He averages 4 points a game in the fourth quarter, and that's where you can watch these games as you're a Dallas Mavericks fan or just an NBA fan in general and be like, man, he's tired. He's tired at the end of games, and he has to carry such a huge load. I mean, 4 points a game, 35% from the field, 12% from three. If it comes close, we just assume it's Luka Magic time from the playoff performances and all that. But at this moment, I mean, we're only for them at least 10 games to the season, and you could see him already getting fatigued. So what happens in game 54? What happens in game 70? What's going to happen with Luka Doncic? I'm not sure. I mean, he's the MVP right now, but I do have my concerns going forward for this Dallas Mavericks team, and honestly, for Luka Doncic as well.
I mean, your point, TV, about the fatigue is definitely a fair one, right? And I think we look at most players that have, over the course of the NBA, that history that have had high usage rates, right? Especially when you talk about how the blistering fast shot they get out to, that's a thing that's worth mentioning. But I don't give it that. Luka Doncic is phenomenal, and he's incredible. And Luka Doncic is 100% the MVP of the league this season, and it's been a beautiful thing to watch so far through, as you mentioned, 10 games. Now, Blaine, you mentioned the fact that there's 6 in the West right now, and I don't want to hear that because if I remember correctly, the Denver Nuggets were not a top 4 seed last season, and Jokic won MVP. I don't think they were a top 4 seed the season before that either. And
I don't think so.
Luka won, and Jokic won.
No, they were a top 4.
They were top 4 too. So.
I'll be honest with you. The Denver Nuggets bore me when I watched them play basketball without Jamal Murray. So I didn't watch much. I didn't watch much Nuggets basketball the last 2 seasons. But I'm glad that he's back. By the way, a few years ago when Russ won MVP, the Thunder was like a 6 seed, and the average. Yeah. So it's not unheard of for a player to not be in the top 4 in this seeding and win MVP. And I think, in Luka's case, fatigue aside, because TV, you make a great point. The fatigue is concerning, and I do think that could become an issue down the line because I don't think they're going to be able to afford to load manage Luka the way that the Clippers could load manage Kyrie or the way that some of these other players get load managed. But if Luka's immune to the fatigue, which we don't know if he is or if he isn't, but if he is immune to fatigue and he is this like LeBron James type player that can just clock out 40 minutes a game and be just fine, and then still flip that switch in the postseason. Not only is Luka the MVP this season, not only is Luka going to cement himself officially as one of the as a top 5 player in basketball and potentially make a push to be one of if not the best players in basketball. We're talking about Luka Doncic running the NBA for the next 5 to 10 years, if that's the case. If he just has a gear where like the fatigue just doesn't bother him. Now that would mean that Luka does have to get a little bit of shape because he's slightly out of shape, and it hasn't hurt him that much so far in his career because he's been playing professional basketball since he's been 16 years old. But that is something to mention. Now, I was on TikTok and I was on Twitter the other day, and I saw this argument that spoke up, so I kind of want to address it here. Is Luka the best offensive player in the league right now?
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't know. I think I would still go with Kevin Durant.
I mean, we've seen Luka's we've seen his bag. He has a very deep bag in terms of ability to get to the rim, like mid-range shot, 3-point shooting. Honestly, the worst shooting aspect of his game is free throws. I mean, he's not still the greatest free throw shooter in the world right now, but besides that, he has the ability to set people up. He gets wide open opportunities for everyone just because of the amount of attention he gets, and he can score every way possible there is in the NBA. I mean, yes, Kevin Durant has been kind of widely acknowledged as the best scorer or the best offensive player in the league. I think Luka has just as much of a bag as he does, and he is able to get more players involved, which I think really just takes him over the edge. I do believe he's the best offensive player in the league.
Do you not think he's the best offensive player in the league right now, Blaine?
I am gonna still lean to Mr. Kevin Durant. Just because of what Kevin Durant can do. He's an absolute physical freak. He can shoot it from 35. He can get to any type of shot he wants. He's starting to actually these last couple of years take on more of a load as a passer. especially coming off of a triple-double the other night. I mean, it was against the Knicks, so that's not saying much. But
Hey, 12 and 12 is 29, 12 and 12. I don't care.
I agree, but so I would, as an offensive, it depends how you define it, right? Offensive playmaker, offensive scorer. Like, if I'm going with a pure scorer, I'm taking Kevin Durant, and as soon as I've seen his passing ability, I'm going to lean that way too, based off of the durability effect. That I would take Kevin over Luka at the end of games.
The durability effect?
Durability effect, saying like how TV mentioned with his fatigue. You never see Kevin Durant tired. The man lives and breathes and dies basketball.
That's true. He's actually the oldest player in the NBA to not have any type of long-term relationship. Listen, we all know how I feel about Kevin Durant, and we all know that I love Kevin Durant. I think Kevin Durant's fantastic, and I am one of maybe 4 people on the planet Earth that think that KD is the best player in the world. That's fine. I'll die on that hill every day of the week. But unfortunately, I cannot in good conscience say that KD is the best player in the world. I mean, the best offensive player in the world. I think he's 1B to Luka's 1A, and it's because Luka, because Blaine, you're right, KD has improved with his passing, but he is not the passer that Luka is, and because Luka's so young,
Marcus, he never had to do it though in any of his other situations until now.
That's not the point. That's actually so far from the point. It's not even funny how far from the point that it is. Luka Doncic, we all acknowledge, is the only good player on that basketball team outside of Christian Wood, because Christian Wood's had some good games this season. But
as Dinwiddie's cooking right now for them.
They're playing the Washington Wizards, bro. This is his revenge. This is going to be an outlier on the season.
You're going to drop 40 on this one.
Doncic is already right now a better passer than KD has been ever in his career. And it pains me to say that because I love Kevin Durant. I think Kevin Durant's fantastic, and I enjoy watching Kevin Durant play basketball. He is after LeBron James, he is my favorite player to sit down and watch play the game of basketball. But Luka's better offensively all around than Kevin Durant is. Don't get me wrong. Kevin Durant is the best scorer in the NBA by a country mile, and it's not close. But if we're including everything that has to do with offense, I would give the slight edge to Luka. And I'm giving it a slight edge because even though Luka's a better passer than KD, Luka doesn't move when the ball is not in his hands, and KD does. And I think moving around with the ball not in your hands is very, very important, especially in today's game. But passing is also super important anytime. And because Luka's a better passer, I give him the slight edge over KD. But it's Luka 1A and KD is 1B. And it pains me to say that because I love KD. But Luka, I would say, is the best offensive player in basketball. And if he's not right now, I think what we'll see over the next 2 or 3 seasons is him cement himself as such, right? Because when you look at a lot of the other young up-and-coming superstars, not named Giannis, because Giannis, despite being young, already is a superstar in the league. I'd take Luka over Ja. I'd take Luka over Trey. I'd take Luka over Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell and all these other young guys. I think the only other young guy that I think I'd have to pause for about whether or not I take them or Luka would be Jason Tatum. But I think, again, because of the passing and because of how lethal he is and because of how great Luka is, I would give the slight edge to Luka. But outside of Jason Tatum, there's no argument on any other young
Marcus and TV, question for you. If you guys had to build a team right now with any of these young thoroughbreds, who are you taking? Are you taking Luka over Giannis? I'm taking Luka over Giannis.
That's dumb. No, I wouldn't take Luka over Giannis.
Giannis.
What kind of question?
All right.
I'm taking Giannis.
You don't you think Giannis is the best player in the world?
No, I have him as the 3rd best player in the world.
Who are the 2 players that are better than Giannis in basketball?
Kevin Durant.
Oh.
And
well, I can't give out your fact.
And Luka Doncic.
Luka's not better than Luka's not better than Giannis.
I have him right now. Right now.
Luka doesn't play defense, and Giannis is a defensive player of the year and has finished top 3 in defensive player of the year voting.
Giannis can't shoot.
He still averages 32. He still
averages 30 and can slot any shot into the 10th row. What are we talking about right now? Giannis, I can't believe you. I can't believe you. And I think you did that to get my blood pressure up. So,
TV, this is why I get kicked off the show after once a month.
I'm gonna relax.
I'm with Marcus here. He still scores 32 a game. Be honest.
I am not a Giannis.
I am just poking Marcus because I know I'd be taking Giannis over Luka, but I just like to get under his skin.
There are people in the world that think that I hate Giannis. That's not true. I don't hate Giannis. I don't think he's the best in the world. I don't hate Giannis. But to sit here with a straight face, Blaine Spencer.
I'm not with a straight face. I am just messing with you this entire time right now. I am creating must-see television.
And also host of, what is it, Nothing Like a Saturday, which I don't even know when the last episode of that's come out. I haven't seen it in a minute.
Oh,
but
Nothing Like a Saturday?
Yeah. When's the last time we had a Nothing Like a Saturday? Was it week 1 of the season, Blaine? What's up with that?
I had it until week 3, and then I got stuck with. I've been working my other job that I get paid for. I don't get paid for this one right now.
Why not? Why don't you?
Because I have to get it cleared for the tax write-off still.
Take it back. That's fair. I think we won't see Blaine back on the show for another 2 months. Okay. Let's stay in the Western Conference and let's move up the I guess the food chain in a way, at least for right now. The Utah Jazz, without Donovan Mitchell, without Rudy Gobert, are the number 1 seed in the Western Conference right now. But I think more shockingly, they're the only team in the National Basketball Association as of today that has 10 wins on the season. And Lauri Markkanen's their best player, and he's having a career year, by the way. Shout out to Lauri Markkanen. But I don't think this is what we expected. No, I don't think. I know for a fact we did not expect this from the Utah Jazz this season. TV, is there anything to this, or is this just they're just starting hot and playing good basketball, but they will regress to the mean when it's all said and done?
I want to say yes, but 13 games is a big sample size in the NBA. That's like an eighth of the season. And what this Jazz have showed us is they've been able to win in like multiple ways. I've seen them win close games. I've seen them blow teams out. And the game yesterday against the Atlanta Hawks, they were down and they were able to come back because of Laurie Nowitzki. I mean, he's having a career year. If the Jazz are any close to what they are right now by the All-Star break, Lauri Markkanen's an all-star. I can't believe I'm saying this like right now, but he is playing like one. You have Jordan Clarkson playing extremely well. Colin Sexton embracing the role as a sixth man. Kelly Olynyk apparently just like performs well with like under Danny Ainge like every single time. And then they're just getting like a bunch of contributions all over the place. I mean, they're a top 10 defense, a top 5 offense, and just the fact that they're able to just win in like just so many different ways. I mean, I know we're probably going to talk about power rankings later. If you know my Instagram page, my TikTok page, I always do a weekly power rankings. I always try every week to not include the Jazz in there. But if they continue to do this, especially going into next week, I feel like I'm forced to. I don't know. I mean, what's great about this, I guess, all in general, I mean, if they are going to trade some of these guys, it's great trade. It's great to like up their trade value for players like Clarkson and Conley. But I don't know if they want to keep it this way. I mean, do they still want Wembanyama? I don't know. I mean, they have Lauri Markkanen right now, and like, I think they just.
I thought the plan was you get rid of Rudy and you get rid of Mitchell because you're going to start and you're going to rebuild and you're going to base your rebuild on Victor Wembanyama. But they're the only team in basketball with double-digit wins, and they don't have a superstar on their team or anyone that's close to superstardom. They don't even have an all-star on their team. I mean, like you meant, Mike Conley's an all-star from a couple years ago. But, I mean, seriously, they don't have an all-star on their team. But like you mentioned, TV, if Lauri Markkanen keeps playing this way and the Jazz are still winning basketball games, Lauri Markkanen is going to be an all-star this season. And what a world to live in with Lauri Markkanen as an all-star. And if the Jazz keep playing this way, he might actually be an all-star starter, which is kind of even crazy to think about. But, Blaine, are the Jazz going to regress back to the mean, or is this the new normal in Salt Lake City?
I am not trying to hype up Salt Lake City fans because Marcus knows this, that I've been covering the Jazz for a while, but they will eventually fall back down to earth a little bit. But look at the teams that they've beaten so far this year. It's not like they're beating anybody that are true like scrubs, right? They've beaten the Lakers. They've beaten the Clippers. They've beaten Atlanta. They've beaten Denver.
I like how you say they haven't beaten any true scrubs. And the first team you list,
you beat LeBron. I'll give you a point there. All right.
the Lakers,
Denver. You beat Minnesota. All right. I'm just ignoring you now. I'm not going to keep talking.
What are we talking about right now, Blaine? This is
anyway.
They beat Memphis twice. They beat Memphis
twice.
I'll give that. They also beat Atlanta without Trae Young. You're not making this list isn't that good.
I'm going based off of the teams that they played in front of you. You beat the team that's in front of you, and Atlanta's the 4th seed in the East right now. If you're going based off of what you're seeing,
but you said
that's because Utah doesn't get the true credit. All right, Marcus, back up because look,
this is my show. You back up, sir.
We got to remember a lot of these like superstars usually will not play these smaller market teams. Like,
okay, I'm not giving the Jazz credit for beating the Hawks without Trae Young. I'm not doing it.
All right,
you
that's fine.
Do it because you're a Utah. I'm sorry, you're an Idaho native. You can do that because the only thing close to professional basketball in Idaho is the
Utah Jazz.
You can do that. I'm not doing that. TV's not doing that. The people at home aren't doing that. You don't get credit for beating a basketball team when there's best players not playing. They're just not.
That's fine. You can do it that way. You play the team that's in front of you, and they've been benching these players when Utah's playing them.
It's the Los Angeles Lakers. You're not getting credit for that either. I'll give you credit for beating the Grizzlies twice. I'll give you credit for beating the Nuggets.
You're telling me that 3 of these 10 wins only count. That's what you're saying.
Well, you've listed 5 of them so far. You didn't list the rest of them. I haven't watched a.
Well, they beat Houston, and one of their losses is Houston.
Houston sucks.
Exactly. So that win don't count. And one of their L's is Houston. So that's technically a loss and a half right there. So,
and most importantly, I haven't watched a single possession of Utah Jazz basketball.
That I am not surprised about whatsoever.
It's not like
I had to tune in. I had to tune into this madness right now. So I've been watching it.
List for me the 10 games that Utah has won this season.
All right, you ready? Hold on, let me find the schedule again.
You even have it in hand. What a terrible.
I had it in hand, and then you got me fired up.
TV. A lot of this is on live TV. We're just waiting.
Speaking of which, Milwaukee's 10-1, so Milwaukee also has joined Utah to double-digit wins. So let's set the.
I'll say they were the first team to have double-digit wins. Blaine.
Okay, all right. So they beat Denver opening night, like smacked them too.
Yes,
I remember that.
Remember that.
Beat Minnesota in overtime on the road. That was probably great to rub it in Rudy Gobert's. But Minnesota's been awful so far this year. They beat the Pelicans on the road in overtime. Lost to Houston, then beat Houston in a home and home. So they went split there. Lost to Denver in Denver. Then they beat Grizzlies on back-to-back nights, but those were both home games. Then you lose in Dallas, beat the Lakers and Clippers in LA. Then you beat the Lakers this past weekend on Monday in Utah. Then you go on the road to Atlanta and win. Then they go to Washington to play the Wizards. Then you're then you're at the Sixers. And then you have the Knicks.
The Jazz have 10 wins this season.
I can only give them real credit for like 5 of them.
They blew out the Nuggets and they lost to the Nuggets, so that kind of cancels itself out. So
they're undefeated at home because no one likes to play in Salt Lake. That is a true home court advantage.
So the only wins that they have are the 2 wins against
Memphis.
The win against the Clippers.
The Pelicans was a good win.
Pelicans.
The Pelicans were at full strength when that was a win.
So they have 4 wins. 2 wins against Memphis.
The Hawks. The Hawks had Trae and DeJounte playing.
Thank you.
Young play against the Jazz.
He did. He scored 22.
My goodness.
I don't watch it. Look.
Oh, and he doesn't watch the games, and then he goes, Trae Young didn't play. This doesn't win if they didn't play.
I said that because Trae Young hasn't played the last 2 games. Didn't play the game against Milwaukee the other day when they beat Milwaukee. That's why I said that. Listen, you want the list of teams whose basketball games I don't watch? I don't watch the Utah Jazz basketball. I don't watch
Minnesota. You definitely don't watch Minnesota.
I don't watch Minnesota Timberwolves basketball. I don't watch Sacramento Kings basketball. I have watched one Pistons game this season. That was the other day.
Yo, Detroit's low key. Two more years, Detroit's gonna have a team.
The Pistons are fun to watch. I don't watch Washington Wizards basketball unless I pay the $20 to go sit in the nosebleeds to go watch another player come to DC to beat DC. I don't watch New York Knicks basketball, right? Because they stink. I don't watch Pacers basketball because the Pacers are okay. I don't want to watch the Pacers play basketball. Like there's a handful of teams who I watch. I watch Mavericks basketball. I watch Warriors basketball. I watch Lakers basketball. I watch the Celtics. I watch the Clippers. I watch the Bucks. That's
you better watch the Raptors. You got to watch that defense. That defense.
Look, you're a Raptors fan. I love Scotty Barnes. I don't care for the Raptors as a team. I just don't. I just can't. I don't know if it's the nationalism in me or if it's the Raptors or if it's Kawhi winning a championship in the Raptors, kind of turning him into a top 25 player when he's maybe not. But there's some other Raptors that just rubs me the wrong way just a little bit. I love Scotty Barnes, though. Scotty Barnes is incredible, as is Fred VanVleet. I am not a fan of Pascal Siakam, though. I'm just not.
Okay. That's where we ain't dissing Pascal. Not this year. Not this year.
Not a fan of Pascal Siakam. That's okay. It's not that he's bad. I just don't.
We're supposed to be talking about Utah here, bro.
Because we have finally caught Marcus trying to give his outlandish Utah take and correcting people, and we caught him that he doesn't watch Utah basketball, so he doesn't even know what he's talking about.
How many people outside of Utah watch Utah basketball? Let's be
probably
serious.
Zero. And honestly, I'm not even in Utah anymore, so I haven't even been watching Utah basketball.
People get paid to do this every day. What we're doing right now, don't even watch Utah Jazz basketball. Let's be serious.
But I do have inside sources within Utah, which helps me to give you some outlandish statements that are pretty accurate.
Okay, fine. The Utah Jazz, of their 10 wins, get credit for 5 of them. They're still not a good basketball team. They're still bereft of talent. They still suck. That is the fact.
Colin Sexton's going to be their starting point guard, though, midway through the year. I can tell you that right now.
You said Colin Sexton's going to be their starting point guard, and you want me to sit down and watch Utah Jazz basketball?
I like Colin Sexton. He just got hurt in Cleveland. He was good in Cleveland with Garland, but they made the move for Donovan.
We don't tolerate. We don't tolerate Utah Jazz promotion on this.
All right, that's fine. All right, you might as well go to the next topic because we're way off of the beaten path with Utah right now.
We're gonna. So let's talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Oh, so another team you don't watch, and we're gonna talk about them right now.
Yeah, they suck. I enjoy coming on my show and talking trash. I've been doing it for 2.5 years now. If you haven't gotten the memo yet, I apologize.
All I know is that I'm not going to make it back on till the new year. So
Marcus, you'll be back after Thanksgiving. Marcus has basketball episodes before Christmas just so he can talk trash about bad basketball teams and get an MVP update. That's it. If you don't like that, then don't watch the basketball episodes until after Christmas. If you do like that, then you're like, so Rudy Gobert, the Stifle Tower, whatever you want to call them, and the Minnesota Timberwolves stink. They are garbage. Can they turn it around and be this top 4 team in the West that everyone seems to think that they're going to be TV?
With this current roster, no, they don't. And my thing about this team is that when they got Rudy Gobert, they traded away the heart of their team in Patrick Beverley. He was the one that kind of sparked the flame out of all these guys to kind of take him to that next gear. I'm looking up and down this roster right now. I don't see it. It's a bunch of guys that don't want to be a leader, who want to lead by example, but there is no vocal guy there. You're not getting that from Gobert, Russell, Towns, or Edwards. And you just need that guy to light a fire under him. Honestly, I think one of the trades that the Timberwolves should do right now if they really want to turn the season around, I know it's nothing major. Jay Crowder's just sitting at home right now for the Phoenix Suns. He'll be vocal. He'll tell these guys to where to be in place. They just need someone like that to kind of turn this around because every game I hear Anthony Edwards complain, "Oh, I have no space on the floor. I can't do this and that." I hear Towns complaining about his teammates' work ethic, and their ability to not play together, even though he's one of the worst big man defenders I have ever seen. And then it's hard to watch these games because honestly, whenever I watch a Minnesota Timberwolves basketball game, I enjoy watching their bench more than their starters because it looks more cohesive because there is no cohesion in that starting lineup. They are a bottom 10 offense, which I was not expecting this year, and they're an okay defense because of Rudy Gobert. I don't think Rudy Gobert is nowhere near the problem. There's just no fight within these other guys. And I just think that a move has to be made in order for that to happen. Again, my suggestion is Jay Crowder. I don't know if there's like anyone else that you guys think that they should be able to bring in, but no one is here is speaking up in the locker room. No one's here is calling out other players. I think Towns is doing it the wrong way, but there's just no one to like light a fire under them. I just don't see it.
Good, Blaine. Waste oxygen.
Sure thing, Marcus. Anytime. I think TV nailed it right on the head. This is a team that was brought in for Rudy Gobert to be a force defensively, but the offense has now become an absolute mess. They don't know how to their pick and roll game is completely off now because Gobert is the screener when Cat used to be the screener, and he was doing more of a pick and pop. But now that's because Rudy can't. All they do on offense when Rudy's there is he has to stand under the rim unless he's a part of the pick and roll. If you're looking at a team, D'Angelo Russell, ball dominant. Then you have Karl Anthony Towns. He's a ball dominant big. Then you have Anthony Edwards, another ball dominant player. Just in your starting five there, you have 3 ball dominant players that you can't figure out how to share the load with right now. And then with Rudy Gobert out on the court, you're pretty much playing 4-on-5 at the offensive end because Gobert, even though he's extremely efficient, he doesn't do anything offensively, right? He's literally a rebound or he's a pick and roll, get him to the ball, and he dunks it on somebody. That is literally Gobert's game. He's still one thing that I've always been covering Utah about Rudy Gobert. He has no offensive moves. He is, even if he had any type of a baby hook, anything like that, he would be such more of a offensive force, and this team would probably be a little bit flourish a little bit better. This team is 5-6, right? You would think they were going to figure it out, but they're going to be now on a 6 of 7 road trip. It's only going to get worse.
There is going to come a point in time when people listen to me. I said this last week on the show when I was talking about Steezy and the Broncos. I don't know if it's because I'm loud. I don't know if it's because I'm obnoxious. I don't know if it's because my attention span is shoddy, and my memory is as well. You people are going to start listening to me. Shout out to the OG Martin Sories, who came on the pod a month or so ago, and we sat down and we talked about how bad the Minnesota Timberwolves were going to be this season. Listen, TV mentioned it. There's always someone in the paint. First of all, Blaine, shame on you for using the word dominant in the same sentence with Karl Anthony Towns' name. There is nothing.
Ball dominant? He's a ball dominant player.
Ball dominant.
Listen to me. I don't care if it's ball dominant or small dominant.
Oh my Lord.
Dominant. Karl.
I don't want to be on this show until after Thanksgiving after this take now.
Karl Anthony Towns. I'm not saying he's not ball dominant. I just don't think we need to. I just don't think we should use the word dominant. And Karl Anthony Towns is Charmin soft. Charmin soft. He is Charmin soft offensively. He is Charmin soft defensively. He don't have no dog in him whatsoever. Karl Anthony Towns stinks. He's garbage. Garbricio. He's a bad basketball player. He's a bad leader. He's just bad. He is bad at the game of basketball. That's number one. Number two, Rudy Gobert is also bad. He's not garbage, but he's bad because he's an offensive liability. The same thing that we saw in Utah is the same thing we're seeing in Minnesota. What did we see in Utah? We saw Rudy Gobert clogging the paint and Donovan Mitchell, who coming out of college was a lethal slasher and he was a lethal playmaker, had to turn into a reliable shooter to keep the Jazz afloat and keep opposing defenses honest. Luckily for the Utah Jazz, Donovan Mitchell could do that, and he turned into an all-star player with the potential to be a superstar and or the number one option on a championship team. Maybe. Anthony Edwards is not there yet. And as I said a couple months ago, it does not make sense where Anthony Edwards, who should be the focal point of this offense, should be the player that this offense flows through, who is dominantly a slasher, is now forced to develop an efficient shot from it, whether it be from mid-range or whether it be from three, and he's just not there yet. It's not a good look, and it's not fair to Anthony Edwards that he's being forced into this role that he's not yet ready for because he's still young. What is this year? This is year 3 for Anthony Edwards. Yes? Look, we usually see that by year 3 or by year 4, players in the NBA start to get there. They start to get to that point. They start to find their footing. We've seen Luka do it. We've seen Trae Young do it. We saw Jason Tatum do it. All of the young stars in today's game, we've seen, for the most part, we've seen by year 3 or year 4, they figure it out, they find their footing, and they start to take that next step. This was supposed to be the year that we look at Anthony Edwards and we say, this is why the Timberwolves drafted him. This is why he is going to be this is why he could potentially be a superstar in this league. This is why one day in the next 5 to 10 years, when Steph and KD and all these guys are gone, that Anthony Edwards could be a player for the Minnesota Timberwolves to keep them relevant, keep them perennial playoff contenders, and maybe, just maybe, if the Timberwolves do right by him, put them in a position to win a championship. If you are trying to win a championship in Minnesota, what you do not do is you do not bring someone into your lineup, someone into your roster, someone into that environment that is going to essentially take away the biggest aspect of your young stars offense. Anthony Edwards is a slasher. He is a phenomenal finisher. And I'm not just talking about the OMG moments with the dunks. He is a wizard in the paint. He can lay it up. He can do great things in the paint. He's not that great of a shooter right now. Most young stars, most young players aren't great shooters right off the bat, unless your name is Steph Curry, because he's the greatest shooter of all time. But Anthony Edwards, I think, in time can get there. What I am worried about, though, is I don't know if Anthony Edwards can develop into the shooter that Donovan Mitchell developed into while he was in Utah and become that guy sooner than maybe he's supposed to, and have Minnesota in situations like Donovan Mitchell had Utah in, where they're going up against tough opponents in the Western Conference, and they're going to be a tough out because he's going to go out there and he's going to give you almost 40 a night every time in the playoffs. Anthony Edwards could have been that guy. I don't know if, and I know for certain almost, that unless a drastic change happens, like TV said, Rudy Gobert is a bad fit. The problem with it is if this doesn't pan out this year, and if this doesn't pan out next year, and the Timberwolves decide they want to move on from Rudy, guess what? You can't move on from Rudy because you gave him a $200 million extension, and no one's going to want to take on that contract from Rudy Gobert if indeed the Timberwolves decide that they don't want Rudy Gobert on their roster anymore. And I feel really bad for Anthony Edwards because I'm a fan of Anthony Edwards. I love watching him play basketball. I don't watch much Minnesota Timberwolves basketball, but I do watch Anthony Edwards play basketball. And he's a really, really, really good basketball player. And I'm afraid that his growth and his development in the NBA is going to be stunted because he's being forced to essentially turn into a shooter. That's the only way he's going to be effective at this point is if he starts shooting the basketball, and he's not an efficient, reliable shooter yet. And I don't know if that's going to be good for his development. And because of that, like I said a couple months ago in the offseason before the season started, I do not like the Timberwolves' chances of making any noise in the West this season unless Anthony Edwards does do these things and does develop into this knockdown crazy shooter the way that Donovan Mitchell does, right? Donovan Mitchell is like a career 36%, 35 or 37% shooter from the three. For anyone not named Steph Curry or Klay Thompson, that's fantastic, right? I don't know if Anthony Edwards has it in him to be a 36% shooter from three, and I'm very nervous about what that means for the Minnesota Timberwolves moving forward, because internally they think this is supposed to be the next step to get them one step closer to a championship. Right now, I know it's only been 11 games, but right now, this does not look like a team that's anywhere ready to be a championship team for all the things that you guys mentioned, but also because their young guys' growth is going to be extremely, extremely stunted this season.
I do agree with the point with potentially, especially down the line, with Rudy Gobert stunting Anthony Edwards' growth. But I think like the biggest issue with the Timberwolves, and I think it was mentioned earlier, there is no playmaker on that team. We have 3 ball dominant players like you mentioned with Russell, Cat, and Edwards that can't set up anyone. They can't. I mean, honestly, the biggest thing they have to address right now, because they're not trading away Gobert, they're not trading away Cat, they're not trading away Edwards. D'Angelo Russell has to go. That is the first move of action they have to do. And honestly, it doesn't even have to be someone too crazy. You don't need someone like that can like give the same offensive outpours. And no, you just need to get like someone who can set the table. Maybe we talked about the Jazz like earlier. Mike Conley, let's be honest, he's not a long-term plan there. You could bring him in, and I think he can at least set up the table. Maybe look at a Tyus Jones. Maybe look at a Trey Jones over there in San Antonio. Just someone who can set them up because they just do not have that anywhere on their roster. And I think that's honestly maybe Gobert's going to be a problem like in the future, but they're already improving on the defensive end, and honestly, that is because of Rudy Gobert. It's the offense that is.
It is. I don't want to dispute that there is an improvement defensively, but there's been a drastic drop off offensively.
Yeah,
right?
because they have three guys that want to score all the time. That's their tunnel vision like effect. They just don't have like that type of passer.
First move I would do is that you bring McLaughlin and put Russell on the bench. You bring in McLaughlin. He is not one that's looking to score. He's a solid facilitator. We saw that in the postseason for them last year. At least try that, and then you at least have Russell who can be a ball-dominant guy looking to score on that second unit.
That's fair.
That's fair. Yeah.
That's fair. So I'm going to start with TV on this one because this is TV's bread and butter. We're only like 10 games into the season. We're about a month into the season. Next week will be a month into the season. TV, who are, in your opinion, the top 5 teams in the NBA as of today?
Yeah, great thing. I mean, you mentioned it earlier. I do this on a weekly basis. I do a power rankings every single week, and as of right now, I think that my top 5 after week 3 would have to be at number 5, the Memphis Grizzlies, 4, the Boston Celtics, 3, the Phoenix Suns, 2, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and number 1, the Milwaukee Bucks. I think that all these guys can work on both sides of the floor. They have that superstar that can get them the points that they need, especially like everyone on this thing. And they all have like a solid surrounding cast surrounding them. They've been awesome this year. And honestly, the Cavs being at number 2 right now does seem kind of like surprising right now. But look, that backcourt, like we thought there was gonna be issues defensively. There's not gonna be problems defensively when you have both Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen in the paint. There's not gonna be any like defensive issues there. And they're trying to figure all that out. The Bucks still winning without Middleton, like 10-1. That's absolutely crazy. And then the Suns and the Celtics, they're just going to be there. They're great on both sides of the ball. And the Grizzlies are still playing extremely well without Jaren Jackson Jr., John Morant still playing at an MVP level. I think all these guys, like especially once they get healthy, these guys are going to be in the mix by the end of the season.
Well, Blaine, who are your top 5 teams in basketball right now?
I agree with everything that TV said, other than I would put Utah in and take Memphis out because Utah has beaten them twice head-to-head. That's the only reason I would change it, and I would have Memphis at 6. But that was the only thing. I would have Utah at 5, and I would have it the same way the rest of the way with Boston 4, Phoenix 3, Cleveland 2, and Milwaukee 1. I'm just going based off of what I've seen. Utah's beat Memphis twice now. I'm going to give them the credibility for that.
Call me crazy, call it a hot take. The Suns are not a top 5 basketball team to me right now. I have them 8th actually.
You have them way off the map.
I do. They're in the top 10. They're just not in my top 5. My top 5 is the same as TV's, except everyone slides up 1, and I put the Nuggets in at 5.
Okay, I had them outside my top 5. Yeah,
I love what the Nuggets are doing, and I know that over the past few seasons I've been very hard on Nikola Jokic having won MVP. I got that, but the thing that Nikola Jokic has been missing has been the peanut butter to his jelly, the sun to his moon. That's Jamal Murray, and it's been a small sample size, but Jamal Murray, it's been tough. But he's been looking good, and I expect him to get better. I expect as the season progresses, he gets more into the flow of things and gets back into, his groove and what he was. And Jamal Murray, I think a lot of people forgot because of his last 2 seasons. Jamal Murray is super, 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 super important to this basketball team, especially down the stretch. Because over the last 2 seasons, without him, it's been in the hands of Jokic. Before that, when he was healthy, when he was playing basketball, when it was down the stretch, when they needed a shot, they went to Jamal Murray, and 9 times out of 10, Jamal Murray delivered. I love what I'm seeing from the Nuggets, and I had the Nuggets 5th. And I have the Suns down at 8 because I do have the Jazz ranked above them. I also have the Clippers ranked above them because I like what both of those teams are doing. And I get it. The Suns have one more win than the Clippers. I understand that. But the Clippers so far this season have played good basketball. And I know Kawhi has, as Kawhi does, he's been load managing, so he's missed some time off. But the Clippers look really, really good so far. They're 7-5. They're like seventh. They're like seventh in the West, I think, right now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
but they look good. I like what I'm seeing from them. They do look good. And shout out to the New Orleans Pelicans as well because they look good as well. I will admit I'm still not 100% confident or still not 100% on board with the Pelicans having paid Zion all that money in an extension. We only played 82 games in his first 3 years in the league. I understand why you pay Zion because it's Zion Williamson. I just hope, though, that Zion can stay healthy and stay available because when he's healthy, when he's available, the New Orleans Pelicans are a force to be reckoned with in the NBA. We've seen that so far through their first 11 games. But, yeah, I don't have the Suns in my top 5, and I guess that's my hot take for tonight.
Do any of you still have the Warriors in your top 10? I completely removed them at this point.
No. They'll be back, though. They'll be back.
They still winning it. They still winning it. I ain't stressing. We going back to back.
Oh my God. I don't know about all that, but the Warriors have the worst bench in basketball.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I do agree with that.
I think what we all kind of thought was that they'd be okay without JTA and they'd be okay without Gary Payton II because
Otto Porter.
Because they have these guys. Jonathan Kuminga, I am a fan of Jonathan Kuminga, and I want him to do well. So far, Jonathan Kuminga has not been playing good basketball this season. James Wiseman
is garbage. Wiseman is garbage.
It has not been good for James Wiseman. I expect the Warriors to get it together and make it to the playoffs. And when they make it to the playoffs, they make it to the playoffs.
Bets are off.
Yeah.
Right now. So here's a question. Since we're talking about the Warriors, I just happened to check. I just happened to look at pull the standings up and see what's going on. Which team are you more concerned about? Because they're one game apart. The Sixers are 5-6. The Warriors are 4-7. Are you more concerned about the Sixers at 5-6 or the Warriors at 4-7 right now?
The Warriors, just because the young guys have not grown to the extent that we thought they were. We thought they were going to be at least solid bench players for the season, but honestly, Moody has been probably the best out of the 3 young guys there, and he still hasn't been amazing. But honestly, James Wiseman, whenever I watch him on the court, I just want to see him off it. It's just he just does not fit that Warriors team whatsoever. I hate seeing him on the court with that team because they still have the best starting 5 in basketball. They have the highest net rating out of any starting 5 in the league. It's just whenever that bench comes in, it's just a massive, massive drop off.
That's true. Warriors are Heat. Who's more concerning? They're both 4-7. The Warriors they're both the 12th seed in their conference. Who's more concerning? The Warriors or the Heat?
Miami.
Yeah.
Well, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show, TV. And Blaine, you're cool too when you're not trying to push my buttons. We'll see.
But that's a regular thing. So
we'll see you after Thanksgiving, maybe after Christmas, Blaine. TV, we'll see you in a couple weeks, depending on how the NBA season goes. But please, guys, everybody know where they can find you guys and all your content.
Yeah, sure. I'll start off here. Yeah, TV on Basketball, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. You can find all my stuff over there. Posting 1 episode a week, but also be sure to check out the daily NBA content. Doing the daily NBA picks contest with my guy Knockdown Jay, and of course the NBA power rankings every week, and just all the other stuff. I mean, I will do some reaction videos to this and that. I did the video about Dwight Howard signing with a team in Taiwan, which is something I did not have on my NBA bucket list this season, but here we are. So yeah, you can find all that type of content on all my social media channels. And again, thanks Marcus for having me on in the show.
Always a pleasure, man. Go ahead, Blaine.
Dwayne Marcus, always a pleasure. Please go subscribe to our good friend Go Talk, as well as go subscribe to TV on Basketball. These guys do great work. You can check me out at Final.Whistle on Instagram and TikTok, Final Whistle Sports Pod on Facebook. We're on YouTube, Apple Pod, Spotify, you name it, we're on it. Just got right back into the swing of things, was working on some different things with hashing out my regular work job. But we're going to be rolling through in November actually have another episode dropping tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that, talking about all of the mayhem that is happening in Indianapolis.
Shout out to Jeff Saturday too. You guys know where to find me: Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at GTP Marcus, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio. Go Talk with Marcus. The rundown with Peyton and Marcus is going live tomorrow, Friday morning at 10 o'clock.
Early.
Tomorrow we usually do on Thursdays, but Peyton had to work, so we're pushing it to tomorrow, 10 o'clock a.m. A lot of things are going to happen. We're going to talk about Jeff Saturday. We're going to talk about the most recent college football rank playoff picture. Of course, we're going to talk about our weekly pick'em. And because Peyton put a gun to my head, I'm going to announce on the show tomorrow who my favorite NBA team is, because I've been dragging my feet on that. But I made a decision late last night, and so I'm going to make that announcement tomorrow on the show. So be on the lookout for that and a whole bunch of other stuff with the rundown with Peyton and Marcus. And we'll be right back here next week. Next Wednesday is going to be a big show because I've called him out a bunch of times on the show, and I've been writing to him, and he hasn't been writing back. But E78 Smith has finally written me back, and E78 Smith is going to be on the show next week, as will Guru of Guru's Film Room, as will Justin Marvel with the hashtag This Justin Sports Room. So it's going to be a great show. We're going to talk some football. We're going to react to Week 10, get you guys ready for Week 11. And I think us as a committee on the show live will vote when the next time Blaine can come back on the show. I think that's a fair thing.
I think that is absolutely fair.
Because I think me being an impartial or being a very, very, very partial party, I can't make this decision by myself. So I'm gonna enlist three of my good friends to do it for me. So you guys make sure you guys follow TV on Basketball. You guys, I guess, can go follow Blaine Spencer and the Final Whistle Sports Pod. But thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. We're almost at the end of the year, bro, which is crazy to think of. We're almost at the end of 2022. 2023 is just a few blinks away. Thank you for all the love and support over this calendar year. So for TV on Basketball, for Blaine Spencer, host of the Final Whistle Sports Pod, this is Marcus of Go Talk with Marcus signing off. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, you guys enjoy the rest of your lives.